Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Fear the Walking Dead video for today, leading up to the 12th episode for Fear the Walking Dead Season 4. In this one, we'll be doing a Q&A, but giving our thoughts on overall if we think eventually Morgan will, at some point, find his way back to Alexandria. And if you guys missed it, I did a review last night for Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 11. I thought it was a great episode, really fun episode. And then also predictions for Episode 12 and what we think we're going to see in Week, is what it's called. And so for this one, so of course, right now, after last night's episode, after Episode 11, Morgan has decided that he's going to stay in Fear the Walking Dead. And this one was, Toryhan Ferguson mentioned this one in the comments. He said, when Morgan got to the bridge, he was really trying to decide which show was going to be on air the longest, Fear the Walking Dead or the original Walking Dead, and which one he wanted to stay in. So I agree with Lee some of what he said here, and I think that it's pretty much true. I don't know about being on air longest, but Fear the Walking Dead has been renewed for season 5. But really, the bridge decision, at least for me, and the reason why I like this episode so much is because for Morgan, the decision on the bridge is not just which group he's going to be a part of, if he's going to kind of help to start his own group and get everybody together in Fear, or if he's going to go back to the original Walking Dead group. It's almost a decision, and it's very meta in this way for Lenny James, and whether or not he's deciding if he's going to go back to the original Walking Dead series and just be kind of another survivor, or if he's going to go after the Fear group, try to get as many people as he can together from the original Fear group there in the first, from the first half of this season, combine into a bigger group and basically start, his own group. So we're basically seeing the beginning with this half season and what we're seeing right now of Fear the Walking Dead Morgan lead, right? A Morgan-led Fear. And he's been in the episodes before, but he's never felt like he was kind of in charge of the group or he was the leader for the group overall. He just kind of came across as somebody who was traveling this way, was a traveler, and hadn't really found his place and didn't really want to be part of Alexandria at that point for leaving. And then at this point here, he's really deciding whether or not he goes back to Rick and the crew in the Walking Dead series or he stays in Fear. And so he, at first he wants to go back to Rick and the others, and then he kind of realizes that no, that's not where he should be. He should be with the Fear the Walking Dead group and really helping them, because really the Walking Dead original group doesn't need him, in a few ways. They don't need his help in terms of, he could be helpful no matter where he goes, but they don't need it like the Fear the Walking Dead group needs it. And then also the fact that the show, Fear the Walking Dead, needs Morgan a lot more than the original Walking Dead needs Morgan. Even though both shows could use him, certainly Fear is, even with them losing Rick in the Walking Dead Season 9, even still, Fear the Walking Dead needs help more than the original Walking Dead series. So that's part of why I love the episode so much. Justice for Rick, Grimes said, I hope Morgan eventually makes it back to Alexandria. So that's where the title for this Q&A comes from. So do we think that eventually we will, in fact, see Morgan return to Alexandria and return to the original Walking Dead series? Now, this could go a couple different ways. They do, I believe, own the filming locations. I think AMC, I remember it being reported that they had actually purchased in Sonoya there some of the different filming locations that they use for The Walking Dead for long-term. They actually bought it out for ownership. So they actually own some of that, some of what they use in terms of filming for the original Walking Dead series. So it could be possible that we could actually see, and that would be cool to see if they want to do like a crossover in that way, because they are the same universe, and we're seeing them a lot closer together now than at any point before, especially with Morgan talking so much about going there and the group, him actually having headed there, and then, kind of deciding afterwards with these new, survivors here that he's run into, that's not the right decision for him. But at some point in time, you got to think that eventually Morgan will make it back to Alexandria. At least I think he will. Now, whether or not it would be kind of in The Walking Dead or if it'd be in Fear, it really depends on what they want Fear to be long term. And if they want kind of Morgan to have his own group here with Alicia and all the others there and kind of set up a camp themselves there and decide ultimately that he's not really going to go back because he needs to lead this group here and they need him there. We could see something like that. But eventually, at some point, if they ever decide to end Fear the Walking Dead, I think there's always the possibility that you could see Morgan and the others, whoever is still alive at that point, if it's, let's say, the end of season 5 or season 6 or something, and could eventually go back into the Walking Dead series. So I think in some ways here, what I'm kind of predicting is, I think Morgan will survive out Fear the Walking Dead. I don't know if Fear the Walking Dead will last that many more years. I'm thinking season 5, and then after that, I don't know. We'll have to see if season 6 gets greenlit. If it does, okay, great. But as the show tends to do less in terms of ratings and demand, they may want to put less money into it, and then if they put less money into it, there's less stuff they can do in the episodes, and it kind of is a vicious circle in that way, where if it starts to shrink down, they might put less into it, then it might shrink even more because they're putting less and less as you go, and eventually you see the series kind of come to an end, and then you have Morgan go back to Alexandria at some point, because the original series might be able to use him, depending on how things go this season, in season 9 and in season 10 of The Walking Dead, which we're pretty much guaranteed we'll get at least a season 10, I want to say. After that, they may want to kind of combine the shows if demand kind of keeps dwindling for Walking Dead. We'll have to wait and see. But I am predicting that I think eventually we will see Morgan back in Alexandria. It probably would be in the Walking Dead series, probably not in Fear, but I suppose it's possible, since they own the land, that they could go to Alexandria in an episode of Fear and then kind of leave afterwards or something. That would be kind of cool. But just weird if you'd have both shows in the same geographical location. Like that would just be so weird to coordinate, right? Like you have one episode where Morgan and the others kind of leave and go out, and then you'd have stuff going on in The Walking Dead, and it'd be such a nightmare. You guys get what I'm saying here? Like if you had both shows going with both groups in the same spot or close to the same location, it would be such a nightmare to try to coordinate that all. I don't know how they could manage to do that. It'd just be so crazy. So I almost feel like in terms of need and necessity, until Fear the Walking Dead ends, they can't make it back to Alexandria, but if eventually it does, then they probably will. So I thought that was necessary for us to go through and give our thoughts on. You guys can certainly leave your comments below. But based on that, I think eventually he will, but it won't be for a while because he's in Fear. So they've got to find something by the end of this year to kind of keep them there, keep them somewhere that he can't kind of go back and have the shows, both take place in the same spot. It'd be so weird if they did that. Brian Achim says, Morgan must be the first and only person to use a bathroom in The Walking Dead. That's true. I can't remember any time in the Walking Dead series when any character ever actually used the toilet, right? Especially not one that was interrupted when he was doing so. Mark Cup says, was it me, or didn't that feel like you were watching The Walking Dead? I kept thinking Eastman was going to show up. Talk about a different show. And that's true that if you remember the flashback episode with Morgan and Eastman, that was in The Walking Dead. So really, for Fear of the Walking Dead here, we're starting to see some episodes that literally could fit in The Walking Dead time. Like you could actually take an episode like this and you could kind of put it into the original Walking Dead series in terms of the episode lineup. And if you're going somewhere with it, like Morgan actually getting back, then it would actually fit, right? Like it would pretty much fit. With the original Walking Dead series, the only thing I felt was a little bit different was the villains or the new characters that he met, because I felt like they were a little bit, they didn't quite fit in place for me as like a group of characters you would meet in the original Walking Dead series. They seemed a bit different to me than the type of characters you come across in the original Walking Dead show. They didn't feel the same as them, but the episode certainly, I'd say if anything, this was more a original Walking Dead episode than this was a Fear the Walking Dead episode. This is like Fear 2.0 or New Fear, which is sort of half The Walking Dead, maybe half Z Nation. With, I don't know, if you go half and half, there's not much percentage left for the original Fear, but I guess we have to give them some leeway when they have episodes where Alicia and the others are still in it, because that clearly is still Fear, but it just, it's such a change-up. It's a bit tricky to get used to, but I'm okay with it because it's still like Walking Dead. It just makes Fear feel more like Walking Dead than maybe it ever has before, especially referencing stuff from Walking Dead and Easter eggs for stuff from Walking Dead, almost more than Fear, Easter eggs or Fear, direction. Raphaël Tremblay says, Morgan might be the character who moved the most from one place to another, walked from Atlanta to Alexandria, ran from Alexandria to Texas, got to Mississippi somehow, started going back to Texas, turned back and went to Mississippi again after spending miles and miles in a truck, is now going back to Texas. Then he will probably go back to Alexandria. At some point in the future. Yeah, we're going to have to see how that goes. But that is one good thing about Fear with kind of what they're doing here is we get to see some different locations, which is cool. But, because of budget, if you've ever wondered why they just show a lot of, like, as he's traveling around and stuff, it's a lot of, like, back roads and stuff like this. You don't get to see, it might make sense that you would avoid cities, right? You probably wouldn't go through cities because of population and the amount of zombies could be around. So you can kind of work it in that way to understand, like, they're going to take back roads, they're going to take stuff like this because, they don't want to run into traffic jams and they know which roads are clear. So, but, in terms of it being contrived or in terms of, like, the reality of the situation, it's really hard for them to produce episodes where they're in cityscapes. So episodes where they go into Atlanta or they go into major cities are very difficult to do. They cost a lot of money. You have to coordinate a lot of things for filming. So, if you've ever wondered for Walking Dead why we don't get to see a lot of major cityscapes and stuff like that, it's pretty simple, the answer. The answer is because it's so hard to coordinate and it costs so much money to do. They did it in the original Walking Dead series. Fear, kind of in the first season, a little bit, but then after that, quickly in season 2 and even season 3 of Fear as well too, there's not a lot of times when you get to see really cool environments. They make the most out of what they have, and a lot of times in Walking Dead, and now with Fear 2, a lot of it's going to be, choosy in terms of spots that they get to show us. Even if they're on the road for the while and they're traveling around, it's still going to feel a lot. It's going to look very similar because there's only certain places where they're going to be able to film, and it can't be, spots that have a lot of traffic around or, in major cities and stuff. Which is why I'm kind of surprised in season 5 they were able to show Atlanta again. I didn't think they'd be able to, really. But they were able to. Cattygat H says, I think the producer, right, so this was the one about timing. Left this message a little while ago, but I decided I'd include in this one. So from the time when the mid-season finale ended to the mid-season premiere for the second half, it was 1 month since the death of Madison. So it was 1 month in between those. So now we've had the hurricane go through and it's a little bit longer. So I'm thinking maybe something like 5 weeks since the mid-season, finale of season 4. So just for anybody who's kind of wondering characters' motivations and how they're feeling, it's been over 5 weeks since Madison has been killed. So it's what it is. Aggie says Morgan and company become new recruiters of Rick's settlement, traveling around packing new survivors into semi-trailers and taking them back. Well, with that one, it's again, I'm not going to say it's impossible for them to do something like that. They probably could do something like that and have both shows closer together and certain sectioned off, like they would go on a journey this way and that'd be in Fear and that kind of thing. But there's some crazy stuff happening with the timeline in the original Walking Dead series as well. This year coming up. So how that's going to fit in and how this whole thing could kind of become crazy. It's difficult to do, and some people, and it kind of goes over a lot of viewers' heads. I still get people all the time, even though I've done lots of videos on this for Fear, about what happened after they were at the dam. So the time between the dam and the stadium, how long did that take, that kind of thing. I've kind of done explain videos for it, so you can kind of see it. They didn't show the whole thing to us, though, so maybe people are just kind of saying, well, I would want to see some of that stuff more, but it's yeah, but they can't because Frank Delane wanted to leave, so they couldn't do. They couldn't really show more than what they did. They probably gave us about as much as they could to close that gap, and I thought it worked out pretty good. But a lot of people still don't like it. They don't like the way it was so different like that. So if you do any of these ideas where you have Morgan actually go back, it's like he'd be going back into The Walking Dead during a time skip. You know what I mean? So it would be really weird to do. And if this is Andrew Lincoln's last season of The Walking Dead, then, you can't really do that if it's during the time skip before. You guys see what I'm saying? It gets crazy. It gets like spaghetti in terms of trying to figure out which way this whole thing is going to go and everything and all the different details. It's almost like Morgan can't go back. You almost can't have him return until Fear is over, which who knows how long that's going to be. Daniel Leo says, I can't stand the fact that Morgan didn't wash his hands after going to the restroom. Well, that's not like he had much of a choice, right? He's at gunpoint. Derek Lowbacker, if we want to, says, do you find the nearly black and white colored distracting? Personally, I wish they would knock it off having a hard time buying into the story and characters given how AMC has treated both. So I'm okay with the filters. You know how they've been using filters in Fear this year in season 4, where especially when they had the 2 timelines in the first half, where they would have kind of the black and white filter and then the color filter, and eventually, and they still kind of are using some filters for Fear. I'm okay with it because I'm used to it from Z Nation for so many years, which, by the way, is starting soon. I'll do a video on that probably tomorrow. So I'm used to the filters and the way the filters switch. That's not, to me, is not something I really have a problem with. And also, you know, it's going to be a little bit different from the original Walking Dead no matter what. Having a few elements that are different is not that bad. So I'm okay with the filters. I think they're fine for the episodes. And that'll be it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think we will ever see Morgan eventually back in Alexandria? Will it take them ending Fear to do it? And do you think they will end Fear maybe in season 6 or something like that? Let me know what you guys think. If you like this video today, please thumb it up below. You can also share and favorite. And if you're new and you want to subscribe to the channel, bottom left to subscribe, and I would appreciate it. As always, this is Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. I'll see you soon.